Black Beacon is only a month old and it already has controversy surrounding it. I originally wanted to include this in my review, but I've decided to make a separate video since I wanted my review to be about the game only. For my thoughts on the game itself, I'd suggest watching that video. It should be featured right now, if I ever remember to add it in. So without further ado, let's move on to the incident in full. I started playing Black Beacon on the 11th of April 2025, a day after its global release. Black Beacon released in China on the 28th of April. There is a 16-day gap in between. I've stated in my review that the game is full of bugs and issues, and coupled with the previous sentences, it's obvious that global players have been essentially testing a game that wasn't ready for release for 16 days longer than Chinese players. Shortly after, Chinese players were compensated with a free 5-star character selector on top of 30 free pulls and other rewards. In contrast, global players only got 10 free pulls that were included in coupons that expired in only 2 days. I just so happened to log in at that time, so I was able to obtain it, but 2 days is still an unreasonable time frame. I don't know exactly when players found out about this imbalance, but without any prompt statement from the developers that addressed it, all we could infer at that time was that Chinese players were given preferential treatment, so the community protested. From then on, every announcement made in the global Discord server since the 2nd of May received mass negative reactions regardless of the content, and the game was review bombed on the App Store. It's a reasonable course of action for players who wanted to protest for equal treatment, and it seems that the developers have listened. On the 6th of May, there was an announcement posted on the server that offered context as well as an apology. Apparently, the game was published separately in different regions by Glowho for the global version and Tian City for China, probably for legal reasons, so each region made its decisions separately without prior discussion. This resulted in the unfair treatment of global players whom, as I stated before, dealt with the game's issues for 16 days longer and got far fewer rewards as compensation. As a result of the community's backlash, the developers and both publishers decided to basically communicate more with each other so that this wouldn't happen again, on top of doing what many players have already suggested. They decided to give global players the same compensation as Chinese players, which is a reasonable course of action. They also recognized that their response was too slow. It took them almost a week to apologize and compensate their players. This time span is not very long, but in this case it's especially crucial that developer responses are quick as more attention is being put on the game since it has just released. Finally, the developers stated that this controversy had shaken their players' trust, and that's putting it mildly, and that they would work hard to restore that trust. As for whether it will come to pass, only time will tell. So, we got our 5-star selector and 20 free pulls on top of other small rewards. For a response, it's reasonable, and for an apology, it seems quite sincere. Now, I'm not really known for being lenient when it comes to criticism, since the issues that I tend to bring up in my videos are usually avoidable. Besides, the developers should have known better. This is no exception. Regardless of whether the developers or publishers intended to treat Chinese and global players differently, one cannot deny that the Chinese players were given preferential treatment in terms of compensation despite their lower exposure to the game's issues compared to global players. Also, the desire to commit to a joint communication protocol between Mingzhou and both publishers implies that there was little overall communication between them after the game's launch, which is unacceptable especially since Black Beacon is a live service game. As I stated before, this entire incident could have been avoided if they just talked to each other and made sure that players in every region were getting the same experience out of the same product. As evident from this event, Mingzhou Studio cannot afford to have two publishers doing different things and making different decisions without consulting each other. I hope that this will be the first and last time that unequal treatment of players in different regions will ever happen. As for my decision, I choose to give them another chance, but keep this incident at the back of my mind in case they fuck up again, because no matter how much damage this incident has caused, it can be simplified to a misunderstanding caused by a lack of communication, and it only got worse because of how long the official response took. I also believe that some players went too far in being either too biased against the game or being too forgiving of the developers, which is, and I wish I didn't have to come to this conclusion, to be expected from a community surrounding a gacha game. In any case, forgiveness is optional, but do not ever forget. The developers especially cannot afford to forget this lesson. This almost killed their game and I don't know if it will bounce back. If this happens again, there would likely be no way out for them. As for whether the developers still possess the generous and player-friendly mindset that they inherited from their days in Kuro games, I'm not entirely sure. I want to believe that they'll still treat their players well, but I'm not as optimistic as I once was, so I'll wait and see. The truth of the matter is, regardless of how good a game is, the reputation of the company in charge of it can be enough to dissuade players from playing it. Good examples include EA, Activision, and Ubisoft. In my review, I've stated that most of the strengths and weaknesses of the game, all of which may influence you to either give it a try or not touch it at all. As I see it, this controversy is simply one more reason not to touch the game, and it's understandable as to why so many players have review bombed and uninstalled the game. Honestly, it's a damn shame because Black Beacon is a good game that stands strong on its own despite its flaws. In another matter, although the developers have been working hard to introducing community events and fixing the huge number of bugs in the game since its release, which they have published in their Discord server, the server has been completely unmoderated since I joined a day after the game's global release. That's over a month ago. Over 1 month of anarchy in their official server. I don't even know why the studio made the server public without any measures to control the populace, and I don't want to guess. For now, I'll just check the announcement channels for updates and maybe the fan art channel. Everything else is not worth my time. Alright, I've spoken enough about this. If you're curious about Black Beacon as a gacha game without the controversy surrounding the developers and publishers, I'd suggest watching my full review here, because of course I'd plug my own video in another one of my videos. Oh well, at least I don't go around saying 99% of you are unsubscribed or ask you to like the video or something. That's your decision alone and I shouldn't interfere with it. Thanks for watching.